Hi, I'm Don Harper, and I'm here reporting for Costa Mesa Brief, and I'm here with Scott Peotter. Welcome, Scott. You've been 30 years in politics, but you're still investing and you're running for
State Assembly. I haven't given up on the state yet. The U-Haul truck has not pulled up to my house. I'm still trying to fight for what's right.
And why do you want to do that?
I'm a glutton for punishment. I want to go into politics. Politics is not my career. I'm an architect. I'm a small businessman. Politics is kind of a vocation or a hobby for me, but it's a serious one. And I think that that's what makes the quality of life in our state better or worse. And if good people don't get involved, we get stuck with what we have today.
Where do you feel we're headed in the wrong directions? What are some of the policies and things you're seeing that really concern you the most about the state of California?
Two of the obvious ones are probably the economy, inflation, taxes, and then the other thing would be crime. I mean, crime is crazy. We've got retailers moving out of cities because the crime rate is so high, and it all originated with Prop 47 about 8 years ago, and where they basically reduced crimes from felonies to misdemeanors. And so the criminals figured out the deal. Oh, surprise, surprise. And they go up and they can steal up to $950 worth of material, and it's a misdemeanor, and they get a slap on the wrist.
Have you seen local police departments and retailers just kind of back down from even trying to enforce the law so people don't steal $950?
Well, it's two different issues. I know that our police department in Newport Beach, when I was on the council, referred to that law as catch and release, because you'd catch them, you'd work hard, you put a case together, you'd book them, and then you send them to the county jail, and the county guys would just let them go. And it wasn't because they wanted to let them go, it's because they didn't have any way of really prosecuting them. So the other side of that same coin, though, is it's bred bad district attorneys, like Gascon up in LA, where even people that have really serious crimes, he's letting go, or he's plea bargaining him down to almost nothing. We had a killing at, I'll call it a murder, at Fashion Island not that long ago, a couple of months ago. And we find out that of the three perpetrators, the ringleader of that was arrested for a similar crime in Santa Monica earlier in that year, and had been released on his own recognizance pending trial, but it had already been negotiated down to a misdemeanor, hadn't had the paperwork finalized from what I understand. So the combination of the laws being rewritten, making criminals less crime-ridden, and bad DAs marking it down even more so. I mean, we had federal courts coming down on the state because we had overcrowded prisons. Now all of a sudden we're closing prisons. Well, guess where those criminals are? They're on our streets. And it's all because the legislature, Newsom, and the Democrats put them loose on our streets rather than locking them up where they belong.
So our laws have created a culture that lends itself to the state we're in today.
Absolutely. I mean, they sold Prop 47 like, oh, we're going to take these non-violent crimes like drug abuse, and instead of locking them up in a prison, we're going to give them rehab. Well, who wouldn't agree with that? And we don't necessarily want criminals out of them. We want them to get off drugs and not have the problem again. But what it really was is they wrote down all the crimes so that now you just don't have as many criminals in prison. And it's because it fit in with their policies of wanting basically not to have crimes. And the irony of it is they sit there and they report, crime is down. Well, yeah, if all of a sudden you stop recording all the crime and don't call it crime, I guess crime would go down.
So you're going to be representing Costa Mesa, Irvine, and
Tustin.
And all the things you've seen in the state, and we talk about LA and horrible things in San Francisco, are we seeing the effects of that in Orange County?
You are starting to. Fortunately, we have a really good district attorney in Todd Spitzer, and he's actually put billboards up right at the county border saying, hey, if you come to Orange County to do a crime, you're going to do the time. And he can have a big influence on whether or not we're as crime-ridden as LA is. But yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's coming to LA. You see, not only did we have the murder in Fashion Island a couple of months ago, but literally 2 or 3 weeks ago, we had a couple of other people trying at Fashion Island again, try and steal expensive wristwatches and carjack expensive cars from a couple of customers who fought back. There were shots fired. Fortunately, no one was hit. and they're still at large. The bad guys are still at large. And that's something that we didn't have before the Prop 47, Newsom, and the Democrats decided to let criminals out of jail.
So you've identified the problem, and you're running against Petrie-Norris, who's a Democrat. Now, does she have a different view on the subject than the Democrats, or even if she does, would she even go against the Democrats to try and correct some of the problems that exist?
She actually tried to introduce legislation, did not go anywhere, where this $950 rule would be cumulative. So she's not really changing the law. She's just saying that you can't go into this store and rob and take $950, go into this store and take $950 and take this one to $950 all the same day without being punished, as though it were greater than $950. And it didn't even pass the legislature. So we've got Prop 36 on the ballot in November, and everybody needs to vote yes on Prop 36. It will reverse the worst portions of Prop 47, and it'll put a lot of criminals, hopefully, back in jail. But that's going to depend on the district attorneys. We need to get rid of Gascon and some of the other district attorneys.
What's Prop 36 label? What's the title of it? Prop 36?
I think they refer to it as the Public Safety Act. And that Todd Spitzer has been endorsing it. A lot of the DAs throughout the state have helped gather the signatures and are really promoting it. And you're going to start seeing ads over that in the next couple of weeks.
You know, I've got a checklist here of differences between you and Petrie-Norris, and one's education. And I just want you to talk about some of those differences between you and Cotty.
Education, everybody wants good education for their children. Everybody moves to a certain community because they want better schools for their kids. And yet, all the schools in California are getting worse and worse and worse. And it's not just, hey, you live in a bad neighborhood, you got bad schools. No, the schools in the entire state are going down. So even in Irvine, where they like to brag, hey, we got some of the best schools in the state. Yeah, but if all the schools in the state are really bad, so you're the best of the bad, it doesn't mean you've got a good school. But people don't put that together. And it's silly things like she sits there and wants to put, and actually authored a bill that requires schools to put tampons in the boys' bathrooms up and down the whole state. Now, I mean, it's kind of a silly thing, but hey, really it's kind of indicative. What's important here? Reading, writing, and arithmetic, or playing some gender game with LGBT crowds and making sure that they're politically correct with pronouns?
There's a specific policy that was voted for to put tampons in boys' bathrooms.
Yes, every school in the state has to put it in the boys' bathroom, down to 3rd grade.
What do you think? Do you have any idea what the cost of that is?
I haven't priced tampons lately for obvious reasons, but I'm sure that it's not a cheap situation. And I've seen pictures of these tampon machines being vandalized from the boys' bathrooms. I've seen pictures of them basically being yanked off the walls and stuffed in toilets because the boys know that it's not there.
What about gender assignment, gender reassignment, notification to parents when your child says, I want to be a different gender? Where does Cotty stand on that?
Again, instead of reading, writing, and arithmetic, they're concentrating on things like they passed a bill called AB 1955, which I call the Don't Tell Your Parents Act. So what it is that if your son John goes to school and he wants to be Jane instead of John, that the school staff, the school board, the school policies are not allowed to tell the parent that your son John wants to become Jane unless it's okay with John. So little Johnny wants to be Jane, you're not allowed to know about it, and they will be, in effect, the teachers will be forced to lie to the parents. Instead of working together with the teacher to educate your kid, you're going to be in opposite sides and opposing each other.
I'm going to tie two things together. I'm going to tie energy and inflation together and say, what impact does energy and the Green New Deal, price of oil, the effects of the new Green Deal on oil production and inflation, how are those connected?
Huge. I mean, nothing comes to us except if it's on a truck or train or an airplane. So fuel is involved and energy is involved in the making of products and the shipping of products. It is a huge integral part of the cost of everything. You come from a petrochemical background, and when the price of gas goes up, I mean, FedEx sits there and gives you a surcharge for fuel. Has that surcharge ever come down? Has it ever gone away? No, it's just, hey, that's life. And why is the fuel cost $1 to $2 to $3 a gallon more than any other state in the country? I can't say any other state because there are states like New York that also have high highs. But our gas prices are the highest in the nation. Our gas taxes are the highest in the nation. And did you know under this whole Green New Deal energy thing, they're going to start charging carbon taxes on various industries, one of the biggest which is the petrochemical industry. So not only are our gas taxes highest in the country, but starting next year, we're going to get a carbon tax on top of the gas tax. So again, we're going to be taxed. Trust me, we charge more in taxes than the gas station owner makes in profits times 10.
I think the other thing that causes inflation is the printing of money, government spending, government programs. And we got, just alone in Costa Mesa, we got $26 million from the American Rescue Plan. And every city got numbers like that. And they threw that money, those dollars out.
Free money.
Who got hurt the most? Who gets hurt the most in our economy during inflation? And I would say, is it renters? Is it homeowners? Is it investors, non-investors? Who gets hurt the most?
I don't think anybody escapes it. I think that as far as a percentage of a person's budget, obviously the lower your income is, the higher percentage fuel and food are. And those are the two biggest items that are hit by inflation. And Milton Friedman had a great explanation on inflation. He goes, if you've got $1 in the economy and 25% of that a quarter comes from the government, and now all of a sudden they're putting an extra quarter in there, you still only have 75 cents on that, which was 75%. Now that they've added that extra 25 cents, now it's only 60%. So your same dollars that you had before just went down 15% in value to purchase anything. And you didn't do anything. You didn't vote for a tax. You didn't hire somebody that raised your taxes, voted for them to raise taxes. They just stole that money from you. And that's money that you've already got in the bank that you've already worked hard to earn. Gone, 15% like that. In that example, it's gone down more than that since Biden took office.
Tell me about the bill requiring voter ID that's in the Senate.
So that passed the Senate and Assembly. That's SB 1174. And what that did is reversed or prohibits local entities like Huntington Beach, where they required voters voting in local elections only to show voter ID in order to be able to vote in that local election. And the state will prohibit you from having a voter ID requirement for the state election, as does the feds. So Huntington Beach said, fine, we'll do it for local elections, and we'll require voter ID for local elections. Well, the state didn't like that so much that Senator Min, he's our local senator here, who's running for Congress, and he's the last person that needs to go to Congress. So they passed 1174, which will prevent cities like Huntington Beach from enacting voter ID requirements.
Scott, let me ask a really simple question. Is it possible almost to register someone that doesn't exist to vote?
Oh yeah, voter fraud. See, in an ideal world, you want voting to be as easy as possible and as bulletproof as far as for fraud as possible. So you make it as hard as possible to cheat and as easy to vote. But the Democrats want to make it easy to vote and easy to cheat.
I heard a story once that someone registered their dog and actually got a ballot to vote, a mail-in ballot. Is that possible?
Yeah, why not?
It's happening.
You don't have to give any kind of form, any ID. You don't have to show ID. You don't have to show up in person. And I'm sure that he signed it with his paws, right? And everything was fine.
It's quite possible. I didn't know whether to believe it or not.
The other thing that they just did was we wanted to require proof of citizenship for voters before they could register to vote. And the Democratic legislature shot that down. So in other words, they are not requiring proof of citizenship.
Where did your opponent, Petrie-Norris, stand on these issues? Did
Both
she
of
vote?
those.
Both
So
of
she's
them.
against voter ID and she's for illegal aliens voting because you can't prove otherwise.
How about the recent legislation that wanted to give $150,000 taxpayer assistance to illegal immigrants to buy homes?
AB 1840, and what that did is it took an existing low-cost loan program where the state loans you money for your down payment, 20% down payment, which you never have to repay unless you sell or refinance your house. So it's basically a grant for 20% down payment. And they extended that to illegal aliens. Fortunately, just the other day, Newsom vetoed that. But my opponent, Petrie-Norris, supported that.
Okay.
She wanted that.
Next one, reparations. What happened with reparations recently?
So reparations, there's a lot of different bills, and I won't go into the details of all the different bills. But the way I look at it is this. We have slavery, which was never allowed in California, and we're going to somehow require people that never owned slaves to give money to people who have never been slaves. And so, I'm sorry, to be honest with you, this country is the only country in the world that went to war to stop slavery. And there were 500,000 people in the United States that died on both sides to end slavery.
Scott, look in the camera and tell voters why they should vote for you.
If you like the direction the state's going, then don't vote for me. But I think that the obvious answer to that question is we don't like the way the state's going. We don't like the economy and the inflation and the increased taxes. We don't like crime in our neighborhood, and we don't like our failing schools. And in order to change that, you need to vote for me, and you need to basically toss every Democrat out of office in this state.